Hello guys, Four Finger here and welcome to another video. Now today I actually wanted to talk about the TBC raid comps. Now I've seen there are quite a few of those videos around, but they don't cover a bunch of things, so I figured why not make a guide of my own, and I'm going to try to cover every single spec in class and everything you need to know about those raid comps and what you benefit out of each of them. Now, when talking about those raid comps, it's really important to know if Blizzard is going to buff content or not. But for the sake of video, let's say they're not buffing the content, and I'm only going to cover tier 4 and tier 5, and then later on, if they do decide to buff it, I'm going to make a separate video on that and a separate video on tier 6 as well. So that being said, second thing that you guys need to know is there is no such thing as a perfect TBC raid comp, because most of the bosses you will be rotating people from one group to another, so your raid comp will constantly change. But in general, I'm going to make an overall best you can get without switching too many people up, or even none. If they do not buff, if they do not buff the content, you won't have reason to minimax at all. But if you do want to have a decent minimax group with a decent gear upgrade chances, I would definitely suggest the raid comp that I'm going to show you now. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to explain group by group and what you get out of each group. First of all, we're going to talk about the Warlock group. This group is going to consist of 3 Warlocks, and it's either going to be 3 Distractions and a balanced druid elemental, or some people will run affliction instead of one of destruction, and there are a few reasons why. Affliction is really decent in tier 4 at start. He can actually out DPS destructions early on, but as soon as destructions get some crafted gear and some tier 5 gear, they start getting a really good lead. And there are other 3 reasons for affliction. First one is people bring it for 5% physical damage reduction on the target, which means your tanks take less damage, which is really good. Second thing is the improved Curse of Elements, which is 3% extra damage for those casters, which is a really decent DPS increase in general. And last part is they put it in a tank group so that tanks get improved stamina from the imp. Now in general, like I mentioned, if they're not buffing the content, I don't think your tanks will have a survivability issue, so I don't think there's any need to run Affliction Warlock, because like I said, difference that the destructions will be putting in DPS will not be the same as the improved Curse of Elements that brings to the raid, so destruction would definitely be a better call if you ask me in that regard. But if your tanks are struggling, you can rotate one of your destructions to go Afflictions instead. This is pretty much a general group 4, everybody's going to run it like this, that's the only difference. Reason why you run Balanced Druid is because he's there for the 5% spell crit to his group, he is also there for extra combat stress, extra innervate, and for improved Fairy Fire, which is going to reduce extra armor on the boss and going to improve hit on the target as well, which is going to help your raid DPS out a lot. And then there is an Elemental Shaman who is there for the totems, of course, especially Totem of Wrath, which is 3% crit and 3% hit to the group. And then there is also Hero and Bloodlust, and also Elementals are decent DPS. I mean, both Balance Elemental are doing okay DPS, of course, they are not going to meet Hunters, Mages, and Warlocks, but they will be doing their part. This is group 4, there's not much to say about this one, this is going to be unchanged for most of the fights and most of the content. Next, we're going to talk about melee group. In this group, what I really like to run is one Retribution Paladin. Now, some people in Alliance guilds prefer to run the 2 Holy Paladins and Prot for all 3 Pally buffs instead of running Ret. And main reason behind it is that Alliance Paladins do not have the same seal as the Horde ones, and they are doing a little bit less DPS, and their DPS is low already, so I can understand why some Alliance guild prefer to run 2 Holy Paladins. In Horde, I would never run 2 Holy Paladins. In general, I don't think it's worth it. I don't think having 2 Holy Pali is that good, but to each its own. In general, I'm going to talk what I think is the best, and running 1 Red is definitely good for the Horde, and I will probably run it in Alliance as well. Now, what does the Red bring to the raid? The third buff that you're going to need from Palis, because one is going to be Kings, one is going to be Might and Wisdom, and the third one is going to be Salvation. Second thing, he brings a debuff if you go to a Paladin tree. Now keep in mind, those trees that I'm going to show you here are not perfect. I mean, pretty much every Google talent tree that you find right now, they're not good. Like, there's a bunch of missing information that it's not same as in game. because if you played any of the private servers, you will definitely see some differences because those are outdated or they're not covering everything as they should. So when you go to the Retribution tree, you're going to get improved 3% crit on the targets, which means all of your raid is going to benefit from this, and it's a really good like DPS increase. So it's already a buff, it's 3% crit for the raid. Then there is also improved Sanctity Aura, which is 2% extra damage to his group. And then lastly, he can also refresh all of the judgments that other paladins use. So if other paladin, for example, if healer uses a Judgment of Wisdom, he will never have to refresh it again. Retribution Paladin will do it for him. And that's the reason why you would run red. Second support class that you're going to have here is an Enhancement Shaman. For obvious reason, he's there for Wind Fury Totem twist with the Agility and Strength Totem, so pretty much you're going to have him twisting Wind Fury with the other totem, and you're going to get the also like the strength. So pretty much he's going to use like Wind Fury Totem. As soon as he gets a buff from Wind Fury Totem to the group, he's going to switch to agility. So pretty much you're getting both. And plus a lot of guilds will use Annihilator Axe, which is on Enhancement Shaman, which is going to improve the DPS from physical damage dealers even more. Then on top of the totems, like we mentioned now, he also brings again Hero and Bloodlust, and I mean depending on faction, and he is also there for the improved 10% melee attack power, which is an extra DPS increasement. And on top of it all, they have a really good DPS in tier 4 and at the start of the tier 5. Later on they kind of drop a little bit, but they are still really good. And that's pretty much enhancements. Third class that I'm going to run here is an Arms Warrior. Now, reason why I would run an Arms Warrior, there are like 3 reasons, or 2. Reason number 1, they have 4% increased physical damage on the target debuff, which is self-explanatory, don't need to say much. He's going to buff every single hunter's pet, all the tanks, and all the melee group for all of their physical damage. Second reason is, you're going to use these arms as your second Hydros tank, and as a 4th tank on Phantom Lord characters in SSE. So having one extra warrior in the raid is really good, and like I said, you don't really want to have Fury, because the benefit of an arms, giving that 4%, is outweighing the DPS that Fury brings. And most importantly, after you get to tier 5 and Arms Warrior gets the trinket from Solarian, it brings even more attack power from Battle Shout. So and yeah, Battle Shout for melee group as well. So warriors are really also good support class, and their DPS is lower than enhancement in tier 4, but then in tier 5 they actually can get over enhancements and do more. So arms can be really good, especially if there's some cleave like Hydros and things like that, but like I said, he won't be DPSing Hydros anyway, so from fight to fight. Fourth class that I'm going to run here is a Combat Rogue. Now I know what you're saying, some people will say, why do you bring a Rogue? They don't have any extra buff for the raid, they only have like one improved debuff, but it's kind of complicated. When they can spec into improved exposed armor, which is going to remove armor more than Thunder armor by 475. So Thunder armor does 2.6k and improved exposed armor is 3k and 75 armor reduction on the target. The main issue with this is that Prot warriors will not be able to get threat from their Thunder/Devastates, and some people think that's a big issue, but in fact it's not. If you have good hunters for MDs, if you just use Shield Slam, Revenge and Heroic Strikes, your Prot Warrior will have no issues with aggro, I promise you that. And running a Rogue for that extra physical damage increase is huge. On top of it all, he brings an extra interrupt that you will use on Maggie, it's really good. It's also good on Hiking Molgar for the Priest guy, and he's also going to be really good on Keltas to remove the mind controls. On top of it all, he starts off low, but Combat Rogues this is their literally like, if you made a graph, this is how they go. They literally just climb. Or sorry if I made it from this side. Oh, whatever. You know what I mean. It just climbs. So having a Combat Rogue is really good, and I would definitely have one anyway. And the last one, now I know some people will ask why this. I'm putting Protection Warrior in a melee group. Why? At start, if you have issues with the tanks, you can put him with Resto Druid and Imp. If it's an issue for you, but I promise you, if they're not buffing the content, you won't need those extra survivability measures, you will be just fine in this group. Why do I put him here? For 3 reasons. This brings him bunch of chat, and since you're not using that, like I said earlier, you're not going to be with Sanders and things. You will be getting 2% increased damage from Red, you're getting Wind Fury from Enhancement, Agility and Strength from Enhancement Shaman, and it's just going to help your chat out a lot. You won't have any chat issues, and if you do have survivability issues, like I said, just play defensively in your guild, but I promise you, if you have a tank who is minimaxing, bringing all consumables and all of that, I would keep him here 100%. Group fun. This is pretty much a regular hunter group. You will run 3 BM hunters here, a feral tank. I'm not going to put guardian, there is no guardian in TBC, so just a feral tank. And there's a 3 options for this spot, and I'm going to talk about it after I explain those classes. BM hunters, not much to say, they're best DPS classes early on, and they benefit greatly from the dungeon set. And besides all of that, there will be topping those charts like on every fight from start to till the end of the expansion. They're just overall really good, and you will definitely run 3, 4 or 5 hunters. I would suggest 4, you can run 5, especially with improved exposed armor from combat throw, with improved physical damage from arms and all the other things. So yeah, hunters, big DPS. One thing that hunters bring to their group which is really decent is that each hunter buffs all the hunters with ferocious inspiration, and this stacks. So if you have like 4 hunters, it's going to be overall, each one is bringing 3% extra damage. So if you have 4 hunters, you would in this group you would have 12% increased damage. If you have 3, it's 9%. You know what I mean. Everyone in the group. Feral tank is going to bring 5% crit for melee and ranged attack users. So it's going to buff their critical strike by 5, and they're also going to be your main chat tank. I mean, on most of the fights, Protection Warrior will be tanking, but on the fights where you don't need to have a Prot Warrior tank, where you can afford to have a Feral, he's a really good chat tank, like on single target. Nobody can beat Feral on single damage chat. And for the last spot, you will be either using a Enhancement Shaman, Resto Shaman, or another BM hunter. Now, if you want to run 4 hunters, then you can put survival, but if you want to run 5, you will put another BM here and then survival in group 3, as I will explain. Now, I would definitely, if you have healing issues, I would put Restoration Shaman here as your 6th killer. So if you don't want 6 killers, which you probably need at the start, I would run 6 at the start and then later on I would drop it. I would definitely run with Resto. Why? Because if you do go with what does Enhancement bring and what does Resto bring? And Enhancement, only difference between Resto and Enhancement is the improved attack power, which is only for melee attacks. It's not going to affect hunters' attacks. It will affect the pets. So the difference is, it's just going to affect pets will be doing a little bit more damage. That's the only difference between Resto and Enhancement, because Restoration Shaman in this group will be running enhancing totems anyway. Like, it's not hard for Resto Shamans to pick this in the tree, so there's no reason to run 2 enhancements, so I definitely wouldn't. So either run a Resto or a 4th hunter. That's my explanation for it. So yeah, they're obviously there for Hero Bloodlust, like I said, Agility Totem for the hunters and for Feral, which is really good, and to be your 6th killer. So this is pretty much my group 1. Talking about group 3, Shadow Priest. This is pretty much, in my opinion, the best support in the game. He is bringing like 4 really big things to the raid. Sorry, I kind of bugged out there, but because they're really good. Their DPS is not the best. They definitely won't be topping the charts anywhere near it, but they bring 4 things. First one is 5% increased spell damage to all spellcasters, 10% increased shadow damage, which means for your warlocks, so it's really good since they will be your top DPS anyway, giving that 10% to each warlock is huge. And they are going to be your mana battery and HP battery, which means whole group 3 will get a bunch of mana and HP regeneration from talents such as, let me just show you guys, Vampiric Touch is going to be your mana recovery, and then Vampiric Embrace for your HP recovery, which is really good. So let's say an average priest in tier 5 is definitely going to be pulling 1k plus. Like, I'm not gonna say too much because some people will get butt hurt because they never saw a good shadow priest, but in general, let's say they're 1.2k, 1k DPS, and keeping in mind that 5% of that damage is all going to be mana is like really nuts. Like, it's a bunch of mana regen, like it's more than like 60 MP mana per second. It's like really good, and also there's a decent amount of HP regen. So yeah, Shadow Priest. I said pretty much everything you need to know about them. Then I will put a survival hunter here. Now I know some people are wondering like why survival hunter in this group, because you can't squeeze him anywhere else unless you're dropping a BM, a restoration here. You can, like I said, you're always going to play those games. You're either going to drop some DPS, you're going to drop some tank survivability, you're going to drop some tank chat if you move him out of this group, or you're going to drop like healing. So like I said, it's always about that, but this is like, from my 8 years of private server experience, I would put him here. Then, mages. Now, when we started tier 4, mages are going to be Frost, because Frost is best early on because of the talents for improved hit and all of that. Frosts are really good early on. And then in tier 5, as soon as you get the set and as soon as you get some gear, you're getting those 2 arcane mages, which will, I promise you, be top DPS on short encounters in tier 5, because if they're not buffing the content like I mentioned, arcane mages have huge burst. Only issue they have is kind of mana issues, but if you run Shadow Priest in their group and a Restoration Shaman, which you will, with the totem that they're going to use for mana, you will definitely, I mean, what's it called, let me just show you. You're going to have, this talent for improved totem and plus all the other mana regen that you're getting from the group. It's just really, really good. So you won't have mana issues on shorter fights, and on longer fights, arcane mages will be using mana pods, Shadow Priest regen, restoration totems, and all the other stuff. You won't have mana issues, I promise you. So arcane mages will be really, really good. You will see. Resto Shaman is no need to say much here. He's just going to be chilling in this group for the totems, and he's not going to be popping hero and bloodlust in this group, but I'll talk about it later on. Group 5. This is going to be pretty much your healer group and prot pally, but keep in mind this protection pally on some fights like Morogrim and Hydros, where he will be tanking a lot. Besides using mana potions, he will need some extra mana, so you will probably rotate him around with the survival hunter so that he can get mana that he needs. Protection Paladin, yeah. Now for the rest of the healers, you're going to have Holy Paladin as your third pally buff, so those are your 3 paladins. They are really decent single target healers, not much to say about them. Not as good as other healers, but buffs. Then we have a Holy Priest, Resto Druid, and a Resto Shaman. Now keep in mind, later on you can drop Resto Druid, like they're really good early on, like they're probably the best healers early on, because like especially on Gruul with the silences, all those healing, and like High King Mulgar, you can hot every single tank and get bunch of like healing. You can hot tank on Gruul during before silence. Resto Druids are really good early on, but later on you would much rather have like as much shamans as you possibly can because of the hero and bloodlust. That's pretty much it. Holy Priests, they are really decent healers, but they get more of their like healing spike power during tier 6. Like they're good tier 5, decent tier 4, but not as good as some other, as the Resto Druid for example. They get really good later on, and this is, you won't really, on the others, some people like to run Discipline Priest for this talent. Let me just show you. Because it's a decent improve of healing and damage on some targets that run Spirit. Like it's not bad, but it's not worth it. You don't really want to run a Disc Priest. Holy is just better, and there's no need to have a Disc Crown. And this is pretty much the 6 healers setup. If you, like I said, after you progress things, you won't need 6 healers on a bunch of fights. So you can always drop I would drop either a Resto Druid or a Holy Priest, but then later on in tier 6 I will return Priest, and it depends. Like I said, Priests are really good, you should definitely have one, so you would definitely drop Druid as your last healer. And yeah. Okay, so keeping that in mind, protection, what else did I not explain? Protection Paladin is your best AoE tank, everybody knows this already, not much to say. They will struggle early on in tier 4 till they get some gear, because they're not that tanky till they mess out on the gear, but as soon as they get some of it, you should be fine. So if you would run like an overall general best trade comp that without switching people on the bench, this is how it would look like for me. This is definitely like really DPS oriented comp with a decent amount of healing, so this is pretty much it. If you guys think that I made any mistakes, please cover it in comment sections and we can talk back and forth why do you think that is. And like I said, you can make a bunch of improvements here, but whatever you improve, I mean not improvements, you can always sacrifice one thing for something else. You can always drop DPS for healing, healing for survivability, survivability for the threat on the tank and things like that. You can always change those things around, but I think the DPS is really important and I would run it like this. And what else is there to say? If they do buff content, like I said, a separate video, you will need more warlocks for like more AoE on seeds. Warlocks are like your best AoEers also, besides being great on single target. But yeah, best DPS, Hunter, Warlocks and Arcane Mages for sure, later on fighters. What else did I not mention? I'm sorry, I'm doing this video in one take, so I'm just trying to see if there's anything else I forgot. Yeah, this is pretty much it. As for the raid comp goes, people will definitely be using jumps, and depends on what patch Blizzard releases. I mean, at the start, if it's 2.4.3, everybody will be running jumps. If they do decide to follow the patch cycle, then a lot of people won't, because they're actually a cost. The jumps used to have a cost time, and that kind of drops a value quite a bit, but it's not a huge drop. I would definitely run them anyway. It's just a small nerf. I mean, not small, but yeah. That's pretty much it, guys. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe, whatever. I'll definitely try to make more of those videos of the same kind, and I can't wait to see all of those comments in the comment section, and I'll definitely reply to all of them, and I'll explain why I think some things are better than the others. And yeah, if you guys, like I said, if you do decide to use all of those old school talent trees from these sites that you find, they are not entirely correct, because like I said, if you go to Shaman for example and you check Unleash Rage, it says when you crit with melee attacks, increase all party members attack power. It's not attack power, it's melee attack power, so Hunters rip. But yeah, this is just like there's a lot of other mistakes, so keep in mind when you're watching all of those talents, there might be some few things that are not like perfectly described, not the way they are in the game. Now this got changed over the patch cycles, but I'm pretty sure Unleashed Rage was always the thing only for melee attack power. That's why I never run enhancement in a Hunter group ever. So yeah, thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.